Differences between relative frequency and cumulative frequency. Relative frequency versus cumulative frequency. Relative frequency of a class is the percentage of the data that falls in that class, whereas cumulative frequency is defined as the total of frequencies that are distributed over different class intervals. The aim of relative frequency is to summarizing the distribution of data in a frequency distribution table, whereas the aim of cumulative frequency is to summarizing the distribution of data in a frequency distribution table. Relative frequency is a proportion or percentage which is calculated with the help of given frequency, whereas cumulative frequency is calculated using a frequency distribution table, which can be constructed from stem and leaf plots or directly from the data. The first value for the cumulative frequency is always the first frequency. Relative frequency tells us the proportion or percentage of a data set which takes on a certain value or range of values, whereas cumulative frequency tells us in order to know the number of observations that lie below or above a particular frequency in a given data set. Relative frequency used to indicates how often a specific event occurs within the total number, whereas cumulative frequency is used to determine the number of observations that lie above or below a particular value in a data set. To calculate relative frequency by dividing the data value's frequency by the total size of the data set, the result will be a decimal between 0 and 1. This is the relative frequency. Whereas, to calculate cumulative frequency, less than type, the first value will be the first frequency, the last value will be equal to the total frequency, and same for more than type, which we will find from bottom to top. The last frequency value becomes the first value in cumulative frequency more than types written in end. Relative frequency can be used in grouped and ungrouped data, whereas cumulative frequency can be used in grouped and ungrouped data. In relative frequency, we only find the relative cumulative frequency less than type, whereas there are two types of cumulative frequency, such less than type and more than type. Relative frequency's value can help us to make pie chart, whereas cumulative frequency less than type or more than type are used in cumulative frequency polygon or ogive on vertical axis. The upper class boundaries are taken on horizontal axis. The example of relative frequency along relative cumulative frequency are given for help to understand from scratch, whereas the example of cumulative frequency less than type and cumulative frequency more than type are given for help to understand from scratch. In short, the concept of relative frequency is one that is experimental rather than theoretical, whereas the cumulative frequency is calculated by adding each frequency from a frequency distribution table to the sum of its predecessors. The last value will always be equal to the total for all observations, since all frequencies will already have been added to the previous total. Kindly subscribe my YouTube channel Thesis Helper. Thanks for watching.